All right, good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy first of the month.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? We are just flying through this year.
We really are. I'm Taylor Johnson here with Janae Hancock. We've swapped places
Yeah,
today.
she's taking control.
Yes. So how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. It's Wellness Wednesday.
Yes.
It's the beginning of October. We have some great weather outside
We
so
do.
far to kick off the new month, and it's been a busy news day, Taylor.
It has. We have a whole lot to get into, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the final tally is in, and Jackson County voters have made it clear based on these numbers here. A majority no longer want County Executive Frank White in office. So you can see the final numbers right here on your screen. 85% of voters were in favor of the recall. And in a statement following the decision, White said, quote, "I acknowledge the results of the election and respect the decision of the voters of Jackson County." Now, KCTV5's Nathan Brennan, he joins us this morning with what you can expect now in the days ahead.
Good morning, Kansas City. I'm Nathan Brennan, right in front of the Jackson County Courthouse. Voters have made their decision very clear. Yesterday, Jackson County held a recall election for Frank White, the county's executive, and voters made their decision very, very clear. Over 85% of votes voting yes to recall County Executive Frank White. So what happens now is a pretty fast process. So Chairman for the Jackson County Legislator, Duron McGee, he will appoint a temporary county executive. We're expecting that decision here in the immediate future here in the coming days. After that, county legislators will have 30 days to get together. They're going to have discussions. They're going to vote on that next county executive. Now, once that next county executive is appointed, they will serve in the Jackson County Legislature until January of 2027. We have spoken with several legislators within Jackson County, and they say that they want voters to be active and part of this process. They're planning on having town halls, discussions, meetings with voters to make sure that your voice is heard as well. But the decision happening last night, Jackson County Executive Frank White, he will no longer serve in office in Jackson County. We are expecting a temporary replacement in the immediate future.
All right, and with that said, stay with us here on KCTV5 Plus. This morning at 11, we're also going to take a deeper dive into what's next in choosing Jackson County's next leader. We're going to be talking live with political science professor Abigail Vector, and as you can see, the story is our top story on KCTV5.com, along with those election results at the top of the page. So, again, be sure to stay with us as we continue to follow this continuously developing story.
And another huge story that we are following that's impacting us both nationally as well as here locally. The federal government is now partially shut down. When the clock ticked past midnight Tuesday and into this morning, federal agencies stopped receiving money. Of course, some critical services like those related to public safety will continue, but the reason it is partially shut down, people will also still continue to receive Social Security payments, but thousands of federal workers won't get paid until the shutdown ends, even though some will still have to work. Others will be furloughed for the duration. The last shutdown happened under President Trump's first administration back in 2018 and lasted about 35 days. But the big question this morning, Taylor, what will this mean for us here locally? KCTV5's Gabby Luma joins us with the latest.
TV5's Gabby Luma in downtown Kansas City, right outside the IRS building here. Well, workers will show up today amid a government shutdown. Now, the IRS building here, they have a 5-day window of normal work until that window is closed. Then they will return to being in limbo and join the tens of thousands of federal workers showing up to work today without pay. Many of them risk being furloughed. Now, this is all due to the government shutdown where Republicans, Democrats could not agree on a bill that would fund the government. And so Democrats voted down a Republican bill that Republicans say was non-controversial, but Democrats say that they want more protections for Medicaid, less cuts there, but also limit Congress spending power, among other issues within this bill. Now, members of Congress, as well as President Donald Trump, will continue to get paid throughout this government shutdown. These impacts remain to be seen as it will impact many entities within the federal government, including the Department of Education. Now, this is the first government shutdown in 7 years since 2018. That shutdown lasted just over a month. We'll have to wait and see how long this one will last.
All right, and that was our Gabby Luma.
Yeah. And so, we touch on just how this will impact people as far as Social Security payments are concerned. We know those are going to continue. And Gabby also just touched on how it will impact us here locally. But I also want to touch on, Taylor, travel.
Yes.
Because I know we're looking ahead. Hopefully, this doesn't last very long, this partial government shutdown. But we're also looking ahead to the holidays. And we know a lot of people are finalizing those plans right now. And so this is going to be a huge concern. CBS News, if you want to pull that video back up, but CBS News, they posted not too long ago saying that although a short U.S. government shutdown would be unlikely to have much impact on air travel, a prolonged impasse could lead to disruptions for passengers and financial losses for businesses as well. So the FAA and Transportation Security Administration, they define most of their employees as essential, as we know, requiring them to work even if the government closes and workers at other federal agencies are furloughed. That means airport screeners, air traffic controllers, and federal air marshals, safety inspectors, and other workers with the two agencies are expected to continue to show up for the job despite not getting paid. So we will just have to see. We know a lot of people, they typically go on strike when things like this happen. So again, Taylor, as we look ahead to the holidays, we are just going to continue to hope for the best, and hopefully this partial shutdown will not impact many people for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, even just think about the folks who have to maybe travel for work in the coming days and things like that. If there are interruptions based on the information that you just shared with us, it might not be very good. In a report that I read yesterday, though, the previous government shutdown that we referenced, which was almost 7 years ago, it ended up ending because enough people working in the aviation space walked off of the job. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but
we will just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, it is a waiting game right now, something that's happening nationally, but is really impacting so many different communities, and that includes right here in our very own backyard in Kansas and Missouri. So something we will continue to follow throughout the day today and in the coming days.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back. Well, thank you for staying with us here at the Live Desk. Just going to run through some of our local headlines this morning. Today, Missouri's National Guard troops will start assisting federal immigration officers. It's the new order from Governor Mike Kehoe to crack down on crime. The governor says troops will work with ICE for the next year, and they will help with data entry, case management, and logistical support. Now, troops were assigned this mission on a volunteer basis. And there's now another challenge to Missouri's new congressional map. A new lawsuit filed on behalf of more than a dozen Missourians calls it unconstitutional. This is now the fourth legal challenge to the new map. It comes as the Democratic National Committee launched an effort to put the map to a statewide vote, but no hearing has been set in the case. And now to a story that we've been following here. A teen has been charged for attacking a worker at the T-Mobile Center. It happened at the NBA Youngboy concert last week, and the moment here you see was caught on camera and posted on social media. The employee and another person were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. The teen does face 2 assault charges. A GoFundMe has been created by the worker's granddaughter to raise money for his medical expenses, and we have a link to this story on our website at KCTV5.com. So we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the importance of getting your flu shot because flu season is among us. All right. Thanks for staying with us here at the Live Desk. As we know, it is October, which means it's about to get cold, which in turn turns into cold and flu season. And actually today at KCTV5, many of us have been getting our flu shots today thanks to Optum. We have David Neal with us here today to talk all about it. Thank you for being with us.
All right, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I heard that you got your flu shot today as well.
I did, so it's not a big deal. So.
A great example for us here. Some of our folks were on my KC Live. We saw some of them getting their shots as it was happening, which was pretty cool. Yeah, so I guess let's just get right into it. Let's just talk about cold and flu season and the importance of prevention, protecting yourself from the flu.
Yeah, as we get into these, fall and winter months, a lot of everybody's getting illness. We kind of get closed in and share our stuff with each other, and I think the key there is to try to avoid that. So if you're ill, running a high fever, really sick, think you have something like that, try to not be around other people. And same thing, if there's others who are sick around you, try to distance yourself some. If you're coughing or sneezing, make sure you cover your mouth and your nose when you're doing it. Again, fever's the big one. Don't come in and see other people if you're running a fever. That's the time to stay home.
Yes, you would think that would be, common knowledge, right? But sometimes we might take for granted our symptoms and how we feel. So can you talk about just the importance too of paying attention to those symptoms and maybe not overlooking them?
Yeah, so nowadays we've got a lot of things that you need to worry about, whether it be strep or flu or COVID nowadays. So again, if you're running a high fever, if you're coughing, sore throat, of course shortness of breath, having chills, definitely be aware of those symptoms. Contact your primary care provider and ask them, see if you need to come in and be tested for anything along those lines. And take their guidance, and then be aware also that some people have different type of symptoms. Like children, sometimes flu will have more diarrhea or GI symptoms.
Okay. So I actually had the flu for the first time in a long time earlier this year, and it was not very fun. So I had the body aches, high fever, and I was really cold. That was something else that I experienced as well. And it took a while for me to get back on the mend. So what are some of the ways, if we do end up catching the flu, that we can take care of ourselves to get back to normal?
So the key is to stay hydrated. So plenty of fluids, keep those in. If you're running a fever, you can take something, whether it be Tylenol, ibuprofen, help bring that fever down. And then again, if you contact your provider, if they prescribe something for you, there are a few antivirals for influenza that you can take. If you have some bacterial like strep throat, obviously antibiotics. So taking those medications will help get you on the mend quicker.
And we are in a time where people are becoming a little bit more skeptical of vaccines and their effectiveness, even for their children, as they go to school, and, a lot of germs kind of spread around with kids, with each other. So what would be your advice, or what would you say to a person that might be a little bit on the fence on getting a flu vaccine?
So the flu vaccines haven't really changed as far as the way that they're manufactured and such over the last at least 10 years, probably longer. I haven't keeping close track. And they just changed the components that are in the vaccine a little bit. So it's essentially the same type of vaccine each year, and it has proven to be safe over all of that time. There's been millions and millions of doses given. And I can remember way back when I was in my residency, that was one of the previous kind of flu shots. Those were the ones that made you feel kind of bad. The current flu shots, usually you don't have much symptoms with it. And then if you're not allergic to the vaccines, or in this particular situation, egg allergy, if you don't have a severe egg allergy, you can still get the flu shot. Really, the only reason not to get a flu shot is if you're actively sick, running a fever. If I got a little sniffle, a little sore throat or something, I can still get a flu shot as long as I'm not running a fever.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is all important information. Is there anything else that you want to share with our viewers? Anything that they need to know, just again, about the importance of getting their flu shot?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the best preventions, especially if you're somebody in an at-risk group. The at-risk groups, children under 2, people over the age of 65, or anybody with significant health issues, whether it be diabetes, neurologic conditions, and then pregnancy. Pregnant women are at increased risk as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David, for coming in to share with us, and also bringing the flu shots here so that we can make sure we protect ourselves here at KCTV5. And we look forward to having you back again soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
All right, and we are back with your local news headlines. Officials in KCK, they are still trying to figure out what caused a fire that killed a 15-year-old boy. It happened at College Park Apartments on 71st and Armstrong Avenue. A passerby did try saving him and he was taken to the hospital after being cut on a window. A firefighter was also treated for smoke inhalation. And now to an urgent safety alert for your morning and your afternoon commute. Today is walk and roll to school day. And you may have noticed, especially if you live in North Kansas City, that this was happening. More students, they are on the move, meaning that you need to be even more vigilant. More than 300 students, families, and teachers are set to walk and bike their way to and from school in that area today to promote physical health, safer streets, and a cleaner environment. Now, here are some reminders from AAA. You should look for a school zone, speed limits, drive distraction free, and if your child is walked or rode their bike to school, remind them to put down their phone while crossing the street because their life does depend on it. So, a question here. What will become of the Central Avenue Bridge and Kansas Avenue Bridge in KCK? Well, they've been closed for many years, and it's a question that many have been asking. The unified government, they turned to the community for word on what they would like to see. KCTV5's Chandler Watkins reports on some of the top ideas so far and what we could see with those changes.
Members were able to see renderings of what the Central Avenue and Kansas Avenue bridges could look like in the future, such as becoming a pedestrian bridge or getting rid of it altogether, as well as where funding could come from. Those who attended were encouraged to provide feedback to the ideas. The Central Avenue Bridge closed in 2021, and the Kansas Avenue Bridge closed the following year after inspections. Impacts on traffic and businesses in the area have led to frustration.
We've really been working not only within our own selves, within the engineering groups, within Public Works, but also working with the railroads, the Army Corps of Engineers, and things like that to try and solve some of these issues, if not on a permanent basis, at least on a temporary basis to alleviate some of those concerns.
Any potential changes won't be happening soon. Funding still needs to be secured, but the study should be wrapped up and presented to the Unified Government Commission by the end of December or the start of next year. Reporting in KCK, Chandler Watkins, KCTV5 News.
A Missouri soldier killed in a World War II prison camp made his journey back home nearly 83 years later. U.S. Army Sergeant Simon Gerlich, he was among thousands of American and Filipino service members who were captured. His remains were accounted for just last year, and KCTV5's Grace Smith shows us how his family can finally be at peace.
This is where he needs to be.
For Carol Brooks, this is a homecoming she's been waiting for decades.
It's like something you never see. I've never seen any casket come off the plane, let alone that's carrying my uncle in it. And I'm glad he's here.
Her uncle was Sergeant Simon Gerlich. He was captured and died as a prisoner of war during World War II.
He was very warm and very kind, and he wanted to go to the military.
He was in the Philippines during the war when Japanese forces invaded in December 1941. Thousands of U.S. and Filipino service members were captured and put into Japanese camps. He was one of them. They were forced to walk the 65-mile Bataan Death March, and because of that, he died from an infection on November 4th, 1942. But his remains weren't identified until late last year.
Very emotional.
The family standing together, hugging, watching his casket leave the plane, making its way into the hearse. Some closure all these decades later.
And it's going to cause us to have some peace.
Grace Smith, KCTV5 News.
All right, and some exciting news here. A Country Club Plaza staple is headed to the Northland. Graham and Dunn will open up a second spot, and the new location will go inside the Argosy Casino and Hotel. The two released these images of the new location. Looks really nice there, and there's going to be about 250 seats inside, and it is set to open in January. So coming up next, we're going to have a conversation about Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which starts here in October. We're going to hear from the Gardner Police Department about an exciting effort that they are putting on as a result. So we will be right back. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us here at the live desk. It is October 1st, which also marks the start of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it is an issue affecting thousands of people, even here in the metro area. So in Kansas in 2023, and this is from the state of Kansas's website, there were nearly 23,000 domestic violence incidents reported in 2023. And in that same year, there were 32 domestic violence related homicides. In recognition of this important issue, the Gardner Police Department, they're creating a domestic violence memorial garden to honor and support survivors and victims of domestic violence. So we are going to introduce Gardner Detective Tiana Odell, who is part of the effort. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you here with us here at the live desk just to talk about just the effort. So tell us a little bit about the Domestic Violence Garden.
So it was kind of created just to honor victims and survivors, people we've lost from domestic violence, but also the reason it became a garden with flags, with names and dedications on it is to show people that haven't found their voice, that are affected by domestic violence, that they're not alone.
And so as a detective, have you worked domestic violence cases? What has that experience been like for you on the law enforcement side?
So my specific position is what's called VAWA detective. It's the Violence Against Women Act. So I specifically investigate domestic violence. I call victims, try to be an advocate for them, answering any questions I can, providing them with any kind of resources I have. But it's one of the toughest calls that any patrol officer will answer across the country. It's very, very intense, and our officers do an incredible job at it.
And I know one of our recent cases where we lost an officer in the state of Kansas, he was responding to a domestic violence call. And this is just something that I've heard other people say to me, is that sometimes it's the most dangerous when a victim is trying to get out of the situation. What can you tell us about that?
So I'll start by saying that my police officers, my men and women here at Gardner are absolutely incredible. They're going to the most high risk, most emotional, elevated calls that can be. And they are not only able to control situations, but are so incredible to my victims that I deal with. So they're the basis of everything I do. As for people leaving domestic violence situations, it does become the most dangerous when you want to leave. Statistics show that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. We have a lot of ways that you can kind of get out, a lot of resources, and a lot of different things and avenues to kind of find your way out and find your voice.
And what are some of those ways that victims can find freedom, or even the resources that they need to get out? I know sometimes for some folks, it's hard because it feels like their safe space, whether it's like, stability with a home or finances or things like that, and they end up feeling like they don't have anywhere else to turn to.
So I'll start by saying, if you want to make a report, the best way is to call our officers. They all know what to do. Gardner's done an incredible job of educating all the officers. They're very, very trained in how to respond to these situations. By making a report, you can obviously call 911, call our non-emergency line. Disconnected phones, contact 911, just give us the address. That does not pop up. You can actually text 911 now. We also have the opportunity to make reports online on the City of Gardner website, and the domestic advocacy shelter that I'm actually working with for this domestic violence campaign, Safe Home. If you get on their website, they also have information for domestic violence. And if you need to make a safe exit during that, the top right corner, you can click a button to make that safe exit so it can't be seen. After you make that report, it kind of just goes into a whole bunch of things that most victims don't even know they have the opportunity. Safe Home and different advocacies can help us with finances, shelter, day-to-day living things that they need just to survive. And a lot of people just don't even know about that.
And so let's talk about protection orders, if we can maybe touch on that just a little bit. There have been cases where I've seen stories in national news where, and even in Nebraska, that's where I just came from, where there were some domestic situations that turned deadly, and there was a protection order in place, but it didn't seem to really matter to the person, who I guess was committing the crime there. What can you share with us regarding that?
So Safe Home does have an amazing program where people that qualify, domestic violence victims, can utilize some legal from them. They get legal advice and attorneys sometimes for those to obtain those protection orders, I should say. But as for the unfortunate homicide that came like in your situation that you had just heard of, we just do the best we can. The only thing I can always say is that victims, a lot of time in my experience, they'll say maybe they don't want to bother us or anything like that. I just say over and over again, please call. Call us if you see something weird. Call us if you're feeling uncomfortable. We will always drive by. We will always take the time to check on you. We will always just come talk to you if that's what you need. Anything like that, just always contact us, and we will be there night and day.
I know it takes a good deal of courage to be able to, take that level of vulnerability to reach out and ask for help, especially in situations like this one. So let's talk a little bit about the Memorial Garden. So this is a new thing that you all are doing. I know that you work closely with domestic violence victims. But what were some other things that kind of inspired you to start this?
So I think the biggest thing was just having each individual flag dedicated to a victim really shows that it's through our whole community, that so many people are affected by it. Oftentimes when you're in the situation, you think you're so alone. And that's what I really wanted to show, is that this isn't something that just happens every once in a while. So we have created flags where you can go on our website, our police website, and you can dedicate a flag to a victim or yourself or anything like that. And what that does is I'll put a name on that flag, and it'll go in front of our police department starting today, and it'll run through all of October. But it really shows the community that this isn't just some faraway issue. It's right here in front of us.
Yes, that is for sure. And the awareness is so important because, just looking at these numbers that I read off, tens of thousands of people just in the state of Kansas. So imagine even just the entire country, the amount of people who, and these are just folks who have reported. We don't even know how many people are suffering in silence when it comes to domestic violence. So I think it's really awesome what you're doing there. Have you already gotten some interest? Have folks already started submitting names?
Yeah, I have quite a few already. So I'm really excited. Tonight will be the first night it's out. They'll also be illuminated by a purple light. They're purple flags because purple is the color that represents domestic violence awareness. So you can drive by, and you'll see it right in the front of the Gardner Police Department. But they have names. I've gotten names, initials, my mom, my sister, all of them go on to these flags. And my officers have actually sent in quotes like, "You're not fighting alone," things like that. So they have just been so incredible to try to show victims that we're here for them too.
That's beautiful. And the solidarity of it all, I think is most important, just for victims to see the support that they have. And with this Memorial Garden, it's new. And I think the hope is that you don't want it to grow, right? You want to be able to kind of stifle that number of people who are having to deal with domestic violence. But in what other ways do you want this to make an impact on the work that you're doing? And even folks who are not, who have not experienced domestic violence, how can this maybe help them to kind of see and understand what could be going on around them?
Like I said before, the biggest thing with this is that each of these flags aren't just flags put into the ground. They are dedicated to victims. So you see those names, you see that it's people here in this community, people just around here. It's not anywhere else. It's here in our community. I think what I hope to get out of this, more than just awareness and people seeing that it is right here and there is honor and all of that. It also is the stance that the Gardner Police Department takes against domestic violence. just that we really will not accept it, and we continue to do our jobs in fighting it.
Well, we are very thankful for the work that you are doing, to do everything you can to help the victims, protect them, and hopefully help them to just find, a safer space so that they can really live and thrive in their daily lives. So again, just let folks know how they can, where they can find the Memorial Garden, and just one more reminder of how they can get involved with maybe submitting a name or just coming and check it out.
Yes, ma'am. So if you get on the City of Gardner's police website, there'll be a link that says Memorial Garden. You can just read through it, and at the bottom you can submit a name. If it's unsafe to submit a full name, you can submit initials or a first name. You can also, it's anonymous, so nobody will know who's submitting these things. And then there's also a link to Safe Home. If you wish to donate, they're completely free. The flags are completely free. The dedications are completely free. But if you do wish to donate and be involved in that way, because maybe you haven't been affected by domestic violence, it is something where you can get on Safe Home's website and donate or buy what they need.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for sharing with us. This was a very insightful conversation, and I look forward to seeing it. Purple is my favorite color, actually, so I know it's going to be so beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for having me, truly.
Yes, yes. And you have a wonderful day. And with that, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm First Warn 5 meteorologist Mike Nico. Welcome to Wednesday, the first day of October, and it is going to be a warm start to our month where we're supposed to see some significant cooling. In fact, our average high for today is like 74, and we're looking at about 86 degrees. So that is some kind of crazy weather that we'll definitely be dealing with. Taking a look outside, let's just go ahead and take a look out there right now. What you can see is a little bit of haze hanging out there. That's a little bit of humidity in the air, and that's also some high clouds that are hanging out there right now as we're looking at that system that we've been watching the last couple of days move in and bring us those high clouds. Well, there it is. It's going to continue to move on out of here and bring us some sunshine. So I am trying to get rid of that super.
I saw it up there. Hi, everyone. Here to help Mike out real quick.
It's over there. There it is.
Okay, now we're talking
now
about
it's gone. All right, now I got to get the weather computer up here too. No, I think I'll get it eventually. Yeah, coming off that break was a little different than what we normally do. So yeah, I'll get it. Just bear with me here, folks. I got it worked out here. Let's get this. That's supposed to be there. That's supposed to be here. There we go. That should do it. Yay. There we go. All right. Oh, you gotta love technology. There's so many people working on this streaming, and we all have our own settings. I mean, I wish I could show you this screen. It's got like 30 different smaller screens on top of it. All right, enough of all of that. All right, this thing should, I'm not sure what's going on with the computer right now. I know our engineers were working on one of our clickers because it had a bad battery. So let me stop this show and let me try to run this on my own and see what happens. All right, here we go. Let's talk about this. Top 5 warmest starts to October. Okay. Let me get out of that. It has a mind of its own. It is running on its own, literally. So let's see if I can find a workaround and try to get this to work, because I'm not sure why it keeps advancing on its own. All right, so here we go. Top 5 warmest Octobers. That's what we talked about. Temperatures are actually going to get warmer the next couple of days, peaking around 90 on Friday. The record high is 95 degrees. Now the changes, we're going to start feeling them this weekend, and it's the form of breezy conditions. And it's just that high pressure that we've been watching sitting over top of us, anchored over there because of Imelda and Umberto. It can't move to the east. Well, they're starting to finally find some motivation in moving off to the east, and that high pressure will move off, and there's a developing low pressure over the Intermountain West. And when you have high pressure next to low pressure, you know that pressure gradient, the difference between the high and low, is what's creating the wind, and we're going to see that kick up. Now, we've taken the showers out of Sunday, at least during the daylight hours, but it looks like as we get towards 7 o'clock, maybe a little bit later, we could possibly see some light showers developing. The timing is still a little muddled on when that cold front's going to come in, and that makes the timing of the showers a little muddled for Sunday night, Monday, and even possibly Tuesday. What isn't muddled in all of that is the fact that we are going to see temperatures drop down to become quite cooler as we head into next week. We're talking about 70s back in the forecast, which will still be a little bit warmer than average. All right, so for the rest of today, increasing sunshine. But have you seen those clouds, those cirrocumulus clouds? Oh, the texture they are making outside. I just want to reach up to the sky and just run my hand and fingers across it and just feel the bumpiness of those clouds. It's just absolutely beautiful. You get a chance before they move out of here in the next hour or so, get outside and take a look at those. And while you're out there, take the sunglasses and make sure you're dressed properly, as we've got temperatures 83 at 1 o'clock, but 85 to 86 from 2 o'clock all the way through to 5 o'clock. That is pretty impressive for the October 1st. You know what else happens this evening, or as we head into the evening hours? Watch the sunset to our west for the last time around 7 o'clock. Yep, Starting tomorrow, it's at 6:58, and it doesn't return to 7 o'clock for, look at this, 159 days, not till March 8th of next year. All right. Once that sun sets, a lovely evening is on the way. We'll be around 80 at 7 o'clock when the sun sets, and then we're down into the low to mid 70s by about 9 or 10 o'clock. Clear tonight, and that means we're going to be a little bit cooler when we wake up tomorrow morning, but nowhere near that average. It was at 52. So I just want to take a look at October and tell you what we would normally have, because it contrasts so greatly to what we're going to receive. So 52 to 40 during the month. That's pretty significant. 74 on the high side to 61. That's a 13-degree loss. Rainfall is still impressive, 3.25, but this is the first month that we're talking about snow, a third of an inch we average. Here's something else that I want you to notice. The reason why there's such an acceleration in the decrease of our temperatures is we lose an hour and 15 minutes. 75 minutes of sunshine we are going to lose this month. It doesn't matter though for now. I mean, here's that contrast I was talking about. We're up to 90 Friday. The winds, because they overturn the atmosphere and they don't allow it to be stagnant and heat up quite as much, they're going to take a few degrees off our temperatures. We're 87 Saturday, 85 Sunday, and those winds could gust up around 25, 30 miles per hour. So if you have an outdoor event that has, canopies or tents, just make sure they're anchored down properly. Or if you're playing outdoor sports like golf or something where the ball is going to fly in the air or the ball's very light like in pickleball, the wind may actually affect that. You can see the transition for sure when the cold front gets close Monday into Tuesday, 80 and 76. So that's that 100% chance that we are definitely going to see those temperatures cool down. Let's talk about those winds. They're going to peak Saturday at 4 o'clock. But they're still going to be pretty gusty Sunday morning. That means Sunday morning is going to be pretty warm in the mid-60s. And they'll peak earlier Sunday around 1 o'clock. And then I want you to watch in the upper left-hand side of your screen the wind shift that is coming in. You see those northerly winds moving into northern Kansas and northern Missouri? That is the cold front that is coming in. That's the game changer. And that's the one that's going to take away the heat wave and bring us a chance of wet weather. And that chance is really concentrated in northeast Kansas, northwest Missouri, but it is possible it could make it as far south as Kansas City. It's just, if you look the legend at the top, there's not a lot of rain. It's a quarter of an inch, more than likely less than that for most of us. And by that time, okay, I already did the calculation for you. By the time we get to Monday, we're already 2/3 of an inch behind for October. And, we took that 20% out on Sunday. Kind of iffy. There may be something during the late evening, overnight hours. And that 30% Monday, that is our only chance of rain. So the big story moving forward after that is look at these temperatures next week. 80 Monday, 76 Tuesday, but then we're looking at 75 Wednesday, Thursday 77, Friday 76. That is significantly cooler than this week. As we always like to do, put it in perspective, the average high for those days is around 68 and 69. So even when we have this cool front come in, we're still going to have these temperatures above average. So here we are right now, and you can see we're in the 10 to 15 degree range, but the heat wave, there you go. You can see the cooler weather coming in. We're almost normal when we get to Tuesday, Wednesday next week, but I still think we're going to hang in that 5 to possibly 10 degrees above average, but it'll definitely feel so much more comfortable than what we're feeling out there right now. And, we talk about it being a dry air, but it's not a fall dry air. I know my wife and I went for a walk yesterday afternoon, and in that mid 80 degree temperature and that sunshine, still put a good sweat on you. All right, so let's wrap up this with your Security Bank 7-day forecast. 86 tomorrow, as we talked about. Full-on sunshine for Thursday and Friday. That's why we warmed to 88 and to near 90. And then we've got the breezes and a few more clouds and the temperatures taper and that 30% Monday. I wish we could be more. I mean, everybody's talking about how the leaves are falling, but they're falling too soon, and they don't have any color when they fall because the trees are just so stressed. So we could use more rain. It's not really there. So let's just embrace the comfortable weather or the warm weather that we have until it finally turns next week. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll be back again coming up at noon on the television. Hope to see you then.
All right, thank you for staying with us here at the live desk. So our top story of the day is the results of the Frank White recall election. And as we've shared with you, Jackson County voters overwhelmingly voted for him to be removed from office. So we just got some breaking news, actually, that Frank White has filed a motion with the state Supreme Court arguing that this election should not have happened yesterday, but rather that it should have happened later this year on November 4th, which is the next date for an election. So to help us kind of walk through and navigate what we are trying to figure out with these next steps right now is William Jewell Professor Abigail Vector. Abigail, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'm sure you probably heard me say just now that Frank White, he just filed an argument with the state Supreme Court, which is something that he had already done earlier this week with a lower court, that he was trying to stop the election from happening. He said that he felt like it should have happened on November 4th and not September 30th like it did yesterday. But my question for you when it comes to that is, do you think that it would make any difference if it were later or if it were yesterday?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I look at the results that came in yesterday, something that really strikes me is the relatively low turnout that we experienced. It looks like it was about 10% in Kansas City, a little bit closer to 20% in the rest of Jackson County. And Frank White and his team know that higher turnout is usually better for the incumbent in these types of situations. So potentially, right, potentially it could have made a difference. But essentially, when we look at those numbers, it was quite a decisive decision. I don't know if it would make a big enough difference to change those results.
And here's a look at the results right here. So we see that 85.2% of voters, over 64,000 Jackson County voters voted yes, 14.8% voted no, a little over 11,000. Just seeing these results, did this come as a surprise to you at all? Or was this something that, based on your expertise, that you may have expected?
Yeah, like I mentioned, when we're looking at these types of elections, especially when they're off cycle, especially when they're in a recall type of situation, I'm usually looking at turnout. And when we see low turnout, we often expect recall efforts to be successful. Part of that is it's easier to mobilize voters who maybe are dissatisfied with the current administration, with the current executive. And so I'm not surprised by the results, especially as those turnout numbers started to come through yesterday. This is in line with what we expect, not only in this specific context, but also nationally as well. Those are typically the trends.
And as you bring up the word dissatisfaction, we know that this all got started because there was a petition that was started where over 43,000 signatures were turned in to recall Frank White. The main issue was property taxes. What does it say to you as far as just the amount of signatures that they were able to get and for voters to make this happen, just about the importance of maybe speaking out, making their voices heard, and taking civic action?
Yeah, we know that recall elections are these really important levers in our representative democracies. And so citizens usually feel empowered when they have this option available to them. So the fact that there was such a motivated and mobilized citizenry around this recall effort is worth noting, and also one of those reasons that perhaps the results weren't all that surprising.
And so, as we know now, the results are in. Of course, there is still some legal challenges that are happening as we speak. But we do know that once the results are certified, which usually takes about a week or so, then the process starts to appoint the person to take Frank White's place. Can you walk us a little bit more through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, it's going to take a little bit of time to certify those results. Both the Jackson County Election Board and the Kansas City Election Board must certify those results by October 14, but I know Jackson County plans to do so by the 6th. Kansas City plans to do so by the 8th. And so after those results are certified, the chairman of the Jackson County Legislature will pick a Democratic temporary appointee. That individual will serve for up to 30 days, during which which that 9-member county legislature has to agree to an appointee who will serve in the position until January of 2027. But it'll be up to the voters in November of 2026 to basically choose the next full four-year term, I apologize, executive, and they will do so in the November 26 election.
And so another thing that I noticed in reading through the process of how this happens, like for instance, say that an agreement can't happen on who they think should be appointed, that then a judge would step in.
Yes, yep, that's how it works. Obviously, we need someone in this position, and we need that to be a decisive decision as well. We have these kind of rules in place so that it is a fair and transparent process. We do not know who the legislature plans on nominating now that White has been recalled. There have been some legislators who have essentially said it would be disrespectful to White to name that replacement before he had officially been removed from office. So we do not know who that person will be. Phil Lavoda, Dan Tarwater have both put their name out there publicly, but it could be someone else as well. The only restriction is it does need to be a Democrat who replaces Frank White.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any insight into that piece in particular, just the reason why it needs to be the person of the same political party?
Yeah, that's part of our charter. The recognition is it's up to the voters to determine if they want that particular seat to be flipped, right, when it comes to partisanship and political ideology. And so that is a decision that the voters get to make. The voters decided they did want a Democrat in this position, and therefore the charter of the legislature kind of honors that and says we will replace Frank White or whoever is recalled with someone of their same party.
And what precedent would you say does this set, just seeing this effort and it going through the way that it did, especially when it comes to, local politics in general? I personally have not seen a recall election. I'm not from Kansas City, but this is even something newer for me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first time in Jackson County's history that voters have recalled a county executive. So it is relatively rare. It'll be interesting to see if this sets a new precedent. Nationally, right, across the United States, a recall of this kind is quite rare, and it's exceedingly rare. And I anticipate that trend to stay the same. Part of the reason that it remains this rare is that it's meant to be a tool, a lever that voters can pull in kind of extraordinary circumstances and in experiences of kind of extreme dissatisfaction. We know that voters have a lot of faith in the recall system, see it as a really important democratic tool. And if it becomes used too often, I worry that some of the trust in that tool will end up diminishing. So I hope it stays a rare thing that is used in appropriate circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of trust, what do you think that voters might want in their next leader? I mean, Frank White was in the position for a long time, and we heard from both sides when it comes to people who wanted him to stay, others who wanted him out, where some people did highly respect him, but of course, we see what the results turned out to be. But what do you think a county executive should have? What should the next leader possess?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just going off of what we hear from voters, right? I think that's the most important place to look, is certainly someone who is transparent, who of course is fair. And I think a common critique of the executive was a lack of availability to his other legislators. That's something that some of his fellow legislators have noted in their own support of the recall effort. So someone who's willing to work with the board, with the county, and really be transparent about what these processes look like behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. And so just going back really quickly to Frank White's effort now to try to get this stopped. What is the likelihood that he would even be successful with this? He tried it earlier this week. He's taken it to a higher court, but is it a lost cause?
There is a really high burden for election results to be thrown out. There's a lot of judicial reluctance to overturn elections. We hold democracy very high in this country, and our judicial system is very hesitant to throw out votes and to go against citizen will. So my professional opinion is that it's pretty unlikely, but I will never say never.
All right. And so, professionally, we know you are a professor. Is this something that you have discussed at all in any of your lectures? Has it come up as a topic of discussion?
Yeah, I teach campaigns and elections, not this semester, but last year I do. And we are always looking at local elections, and especially, not to be a broken record, right, but especially talking about those turnout rates. These are really important elections for individuals to participate in. Your local government has a lot of impact on your day-to-day life. Who's in those positions really matters. And so when I talk to my students about this election and elections like it, I always really encourage high participation, high engagement, especially given your local government is really the one that is going to be responsive to your needs and your desires.
Yeah, and that's what we see here. And I think there's always an emphasis, especially when we have like the big presidential election years. There are other people on the ballot as well, and sometimes folks don't even really pay attention to what's going on around them, who some of these folks are who are on the ballot. So local politics is very important.
Absolutely.
Yes. Anything else that you want to say or add to the conversation?
No, I'll be watching along with the rest of you to see what happens next, certainly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Abigail. It was great to have you, and we really appreciate your insight. I'm sure we'll be talking with you again soon. And I know you have class coming up, so we'll let you get to that.
Sounds great. I'm sure my students wouldn't mind if I were late, but I definitely need to be there for them. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, you have a great one. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
And with that, we will take a break, and we'll be right back. Well, thank you for staying with us here at the live desk. It is hard to believe it is almost time for the Chapel Roan concert. We have not seen excitement for a show like this since Taylor Swift and Beyonce were in town, but the craze is on, and several Metro businesses are taking part in the celebrations as the Midwest Princess stops in town for 2 concerts happening this weekend, and it is going to be the center point for fans across the region to come right here to Kansas City. KCTV5's Morgan Rydell has more on all about it.
Kansas City is on an exclusive list. Chapel Roan's concert series is only happening here, LA, and New York. And fans are buzzing.
It's fun to witness it all.
Melissa Evans owns Retro Vixen. They've been a hot spot for those looking for a Chapel Roan themed outfit.
It's cool to see people connecting. That like someone's like, I'm shopping for Chapel, and someone's like, I am too, and like they get excited and they're like, what date are you going? Or maybe I'll see you there.
Evans says it's some of the biggest business they've seen at the store since opening nearly 15 years ago. But she's not just excited for herself and her store.
A lot of shops are doing drink specials and food specials.
A social media post is propelling numerous local businesses to the spotlight.
We are right there.
It feels like KC is starting to get the recognition I believe that it's always deserved.
Cafe Corazon and Cafe appeared on this list of hot spots for people to hit when visiting town, published by a fan page.
We were honored, we were very surprised, and then I think a couple days after that post, a lot of customers, a lot of supporters in the community asked us if we were doing anything.
This one will be the hot to go.
The businesses jumped, creating unique drinks only available on the days of the concert.
People are literally driving from big towns like Dallas, Chicago, these big Midwest cities.
When Beyonce came to town, people were super excited. But Chapel Roan, I think being a Midwest princess, people are really, really excited.
It's crazy. It feels like Taylor Swift coming to KC.
Going to be so exciting. I know a couple of folks in the KCTV5 newsroom are going to be going to this concert. So if you're going, here's everything that you need to know. So the gates are going to open at 4 p.m. each day, and the show starts at 6:30. Now, depending on the size of the bag you're bringing in, it might need to be clear, which is something that you should be used to, especially if you go to Arrowhead or the Cape pretty often. And parking is available, but will be limited. So if possible, if you can ride the streetcar, that might be a great idea for you. Again, this is going to be at the World War I Memorial and Museum. And also you have to be sure to check out the mural that was being painted. So this was the process. I actually drove past it yesterday and saw it nice and done. It looks great. Look at the streetcar there, super cute too. So be sure to hop on that, take advantage of it. And it's going to be a great weekend weather-wise for the concert as well. So we hope that all of you who are going have a fun time. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will get to our national headlines. Well, thanks for staying with us here at the Live Desk. Time for the national news headlines of the day. Cuts to NPR, PBS, and other public media outlets have been in the news all year long, but now the federal funds have actually run out. With Tuesday marking the end of the federal government's fiscal year, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is saying that farewell to staffers and winding down its operations. Over the summer, Republicans in Congress clawed back $1 billion in funds that had been budgeted for public media. Local PBS and NPR affiliates have laid off staffers, limited travel, and cut parts of their operations to cope with budget shortfalls. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting's CEO says many stations, particularly in rural areas, will ultimately go under without the federal support. All right. Meanwhile, in a rare meeting with hundreds of military leaders, President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, they told troops to get in line with President Trump's agenda or resign. Among other glaring statements, Hegseth said it was, quote, unacceptable to see fat generals in the halls of the Pentagon. Naomi Ruckham has more from the gathering, plus the latest on the president's push to lower drug prices.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth welcomed the nation's top military brass to Washington by announcing new standards on troops' physical fitness.
It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
Hegseth told the crowd of nearly 800 military leaders that troops would be required to pass a combat field test and meet grooming standards.
No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression.
He also touted a return to, quote, the highest male fitness standards, saying it's not the intent to keep women out of combat roles, but acknowledged that could be the result. President Trump also spoke to the group himself, saying that, quote, dangerous cities like Chicago should be used as training grounds for U.S. troops.
This is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within.
Democrats like Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth, a veteran herself, fought back fiercely, calling the proposal illegal
and unconstitutional. You cannot deploy our military onto the streets of our cities.
Also on Tuesday, President Trump celebrated his win against drug maker Pfizer, announcing the company has agreed to offer lower prices on some prescriptions through a federally operated website called Trump RX. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News.
A hacker stole sensitive data from employees at 2 federal agencies this summer. That's according to an internal assessment from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. It was described as a widespread data theft from employees at both FEMA and Customs and Border Protection. The weeks-long hacking incident prompted an urgent cleanup operation by senior Department of Homeland Security IT officials. The assessment said the hacker got deep access to a FEMA network that oversees operations across parts of the U.S., South and Southwest. Last month, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the firing of 24 FEMA IT employees. Noem said there were, quote, severe lapses in security that allowed a threat actor to breach FEMA's network. Now to another headline that has been in the news all year. A judge has rejected a bid by Sean Diddy Combs to overturn his conviction. In a decision filed Tuesday, the judge denied Combs' request to vacate his conviction on prostitution-related charges or allow for a new trial. Combs was convicted in July of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, which carry a maximum sentence of 10 years on each count. Federal prosecutors, they are asking for more than 11 years in prison. Combs is scheduled to be sentenced this coming Friday. All right, so the latest in ChatGPT news. Parents can now exercise some control over ChatGPT conversations. OpenAI says that it launched parental controls and a parent resource page to offer a guidance on how ChatGPT works. The controls, they allow parents to link their account to their teens so they can customize age-appropriate settings. OpenAI says it worked with advocacy groups like Common Sense Media to develop the latest parental controls. So here's a question. What do Taylor Swift, Back to the Future, and James Cameron's Avatar all have in common? Well, they are all headed to the movie theaters in October. Rick Damigella reports.
October is turning into another crowded month at movie theaters. October 3rd sees Taylor Swift taking over big screens with the official release party for her new album, The Life of a Showgirl. Also hitting theaters that day are the re-release of Avatar: The Way of Water and Dwayne Johnson in The Smashing Machine.
It's in glorious Technicolor.
There are 16 wide and limited release movies hitting theaters on the 10th. Among them are Kiss of the Spider-Woman, Roofman, and Tron Ares.
Breach detected. Lockdown initiated.
The 17th sees The Astronaut landing in cinemas, along with Black Phone 2 and Good Fortune. The 24th sees The Boss getting the biopic treatment in Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere, debuting alongside the comedy Blue Moon.
I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine that you invented. Right, Scott!
And arguably, the biggest movie heading to theaters on Halloween isn't a horror flick, but the 40th anniversary re-release of Back to the Future. In Hollywood, and wondering why they didn't just release it on the 26th to coincide with the dates inputted on the DeLorean time machine, I'm Rick Damigella.
Welcome back into the live desk on this Wellness Wednesday. I'm Janae Hancock here with Latrice Kabuya. Latrice, how's it going?
You know what? It's good. The weather feels good. I feel good. What about you?
I'm feeling good as well. You know, I
Good.
told you I wanted to be just a tad bit colder because, you know, the heat, I feel like it's picking back up. We're going on another round of spring or summer, and I know you're the complete opposite. So we'll chat about that another time.
Yes.
But again, we are kicking off the month of
Yeah.
October today, which is also Breast Cancer Awareness
Yeah.
Month. So I do want to talk a little bit more about that because, you know, with breast cancer, for men and women comes fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. So let's talk a little bit more about how people can really cope with that.
You know, you just said it. When someone gets a diagnosis of that, man or woman, it triggers the fear, the anxiety, the stress, just the uncertainty, right, of their life. And I think the way they cope with it is talking about it. Right? Being honest with their feelings, asking all the questions to the professionals, and building a support team, group, community that's going to help them navigate, because they don't have to do this alone, right?
Yeah.
And many times what I hear is that they feel isolated.
Yeah.
And so I think if we can help them with that community support, it will lighten the load a little bit, but truly be honest with your feelings, your emotions, and maybe one day you're having a real strong, good day, and the next day you're like in total fear. That's normal. That is absolutely normal, and what you do is just navigate through it, right? Yeah.
And I want to touch a little bit more on navigating, but I also want to touch on the fact that this is hard. It is so hard. It's hard for the person that's going through it. It's hard for the person that's around the person going through it. And I want to touch on some statistics as well, because we know that breast cancer is the most common cancer in women right here in the United States. And for Black women, they have the highest death rate from breast cancer. So you talk about navigating. I want to focus on navigating self-esteem, especially regarding the changes that they will go through post-surgery as well as chemotherapy. So how do you really stay confident in yourself and how you look after such a huge change?
Well, I think because you have to shift your attention, right? Because, you know, as we know, women lose hair. Sometimes they have to get their breasts removed. And that's huge. And I don't want to minimize that in any way. And if I could put an and comma, if you look at the fact that you're still here, you fought, you did something so hard, and you're still standing. There's beauty in that, right? You know, the outer shell, yes, there's things that we can do. You know, people are wearing wigs. Okay, get you a good wig.
You can get you a good wig.
Get a good wig. Get, those bras that, fill up, whatever makes you feel comfortable and confident. But I don't want you to miss the fact that you have resilience, that you've tapped into that. You fought a good fight and you're still here. That's the beauty. And you're able now to help another sister along the way. And I think that's beautiful, right? You are a warrior. You're powerful. And that's the focus, right? This outside, I get it, right? I got purple lipstick on, because I'm trying to be cute. And you still are. But I think it's just beauty in your fight. I think it's beauty in your healing. And that's the focus.
Finding the beauty in all of it. And my next point was actually the sisterhood and the brotherhood that comes out of this. How do you truly support your loved one? How do you step up and be there for them? I mean, is it giving them those words of affirmation, or how can you really do that?
I love that question, because when we want to be there for someone, we kind of decide what we're going to do. The first thing I would tell you to do is ask, how do I show up? What does that look like for you? Because what I think I should do for you may not do anything for you but irritate you.
Yeah.
So be honest, be open and flexible, because what they may need, you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's not anything I considered.
Right.
But ask them and then follow through with your word.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not going to be easy. You don't have to have all the answers. In fact, sometimes just your presence and your support for them, you don't have to have the right words, sometimes no words, but just being with them. I had a sister, a girlfriend of mine that had breast cancer, and I just held her.
Yeah.
I just held her.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was appropriate at that particular time,
Right.
but holding her spoke volumes,
Yeah.
right? So ask them, what do you need? What is that going to look like?
Yeah.
And continue to ask them, because each day, each week, it may be different, but let them tell you how to show up for them.
No, that is very accurate. And I love what you said there. Just being there speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Because I know my aunt also, she, again, going back to the fact that we all know someone who's been
Yes.
through it. And my aunt, she just needed someone, she just needed presence.
Yeah.
Just be present.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to say anything at all, but if you show up, that's just telling me that you are here.
Yeah.
And you care.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about the hidden challenges as well, because I mean, there's survivor's guilt. Because so many, going back to those statistics, so many don't survive.
Yes.
Both men and women. So how do you really face that as well?
I think what you have to do is, again, it's all about the awareness piece. Like, when a person feels bad because they survived and maybe a sister or a brother they knew did it, I'm going to just go straight and say, go to a professional and navigate that guilt. Right? Navigate that, because that's heavy and it's real. And so you need to understand it's not your fault, right? You didn't write their destiny. You didn't write yours. But this is where you're at. So utilize it in a way that empowers other people, right? And get help. Go to a professional to lessen that burden that you feel when it comes to you surviving and maybe not your sister or your brother. But I do want you to know it's not your fault. It's not. And it's okay. It's okay to be happy you survived. It's okay to be happy that you're still here. And so you need someone to help you navigate that piece of it. And so that the guilt doesn't put you in a chokehold, because you have so much to be thankful for, so much to celebrate, so much to still do in life to empower others, to impact others. And so it's real, that guilt, and yet you can still overcome that.
Yeah. And even if you don't have a loved one that is nearby that can really take care of you and be there for you, there are so many different organizations and communities of men and women. I know we're partnering with Making Strides right here in Kansas City, and that's an event that'll be happening later on this month. We'll bring that to our viewers a little bit later.
Love that.
But I appreciate this so much, Latrice.
Absolutely.
And like you said, go and speak to someone. Seek help for yourself and take care of yourself. And also, I want to touch on this, the power of detection and early detection. So definitely go get yourself checked out.
Please.
Latrice, thank you so much. And we will see you next Wednesday for Wellness Wednesday.
For sure.
We'll be right back after the break.
Thank you for staying with us here at the live desk. We do have a breaking update when it comes to the Frank White recall election. As you know, yesterday, Jackson County voters did vote him out of his role as county executive, but we have just learned that he has taken the next step in stopping this recall once again. Even with the 85% majority, White has filed a petition with the Missouri Supreme Court claiming that elections are supposed to be limited to 4 authorized dates per year. So according to White, the date of the special election, which was yesterday, September 30th, was not one of those dates, meaning federal and state absentee ballot requirements cannot be satisfied. The petition, it does ask the court to vacate the recall election and declare that it can only be held on the next lawful election date of November 4th of 2025. So also, earlier this week, Frank White tried to stop this by filing a similar motion in a lower court. It was overturned. But as we take another look quickly at the results, as we see from yesterday, 85.2% of Jackson County voters voted for Frank White to be removed from his position, while 14.8% voted no. And of course, the big question here is what are next steps when it comes to this situation in the Frank White recall election, who will take his place. And with that, we are going to turn to our Nathan Brennan, who's going to give us a quick breakdown.
Good morning, Kansas City. I'm Nathan. Frank White, the county's executive, and voters made their decision very, very clear. Over 85% of votes voting yes to recall County Executive Frank White. So what happens now is a pretty fast process. So Chairman for the Jackson County Legislator, Duron McGee, he will appoint a temporary county executive. We're expecting that decision here in the immediate future here in the coming days. After that, county legislators will have 30 days to get together. They're going to have discussions. They're going to vote on that next county executive. Now, once that next county executive is appointed, they will serve in the Jackson County Legislature until January of 2027. We have spoken with several legislators within Jackson County, and they say that they want voters to be active and part of this process. They're planning on having town halls, discussions, meetings with voters to make sure that your voice is heard as well. But the decision happening last night, Jackson County Executive Frank White, he will no longer serve in office in Jackson County. We are expecting a temporary replacement here in the immediate future.
And with that said, we're going to go to our other quick top story of the day. As you know, the federal government is now partially shut down. So when the clock ticked past midnight Tuesday into this morning, federal agencies stopped receiving money. And of course, some critical services like those related to public safety will continue, but people will also still continue to receive Social Security payments. However, thousands of federal workers won't get paid until the shutdown ends, even though some will still have to work and others will be furloughed for the duration. Now, the last shutdown happened under President Trump's first administration in 2018 and lasted for 35 days. But of course, it is going to have some local impacts for us here in Kansas City. So with that being said, our Gabby Luma is going to walk us through what some of those impacts are.
Gabby Luma in downtown Kansas City, right outside the IRS building here. Well, workers will show up today amid a government shutdown. Now, the IRS building here, they have a 5-day window of normal work until that window is closed. Then they will return to being in limbo and join the tens of thousands of federal workers showing up to work today without pay. Many of them risk being furloughed. Now, this is all due to the government shutdown, where Republicans, Democrats could not agree on a bill that would fund the government. And so Democrats voted down a Republican bill that Republicans say was non-controversial, but Democrats say that they want more protections for Medicaid, less cuts there, but also limit Congress spending power, among other issues within this bill. Now, members of Congress, as well as President Donald Trump, will continue to get paid throughout this government shutdown. These impacts remain to be seen, as it will impact many entities within the federal government, including the Department of Education. Now, this is the first government shutdown in 7 years since 2018. That shutdown lasted just over a month. We'll have to wait and see how long this one will last.
And we will keep you updated on the latest when it comes to the government shutdown and the latest developments when it comes to that. And you can find those right here on our website, KCTV5.com. As you can see, our Frank White headline is our top story today, and the government shutdown is right underneath it. So we will continue to keep you updated both on air and online and right here at KCTV5 Plus. Our new newscast will be starting soon, and you will hear from a political science professor who we just spoke with about an hour ago, sharing insights about just the recall election and what this means now, especially with Frank White filing a writ with the Missouri Supreme Court to vacate the decision to remove him from office. And now, with that being said, before we close things out, just want to leave you with a nice little lighthearted story about a community in Georgia trying to come together to wrangle up a very unlikely animal. Let's see.
A 12-foot alligator took up residence near the drive-thru of a McDonald's on Rocky Creek Road this weekend, and it stayed there for days. Witnesses say the gator first appeared Friday, and after multiple calls to law enforcement and animal control, it remained in the parking lot by Sunday afternoon. That's when Macon rapper and music producer Lord DeAndre and a group of other bystanders say they took matters into their own hands.
Lord DeAndre, the alligator man. Yeah. I guess we can go with that.
Now dubbing a new nickname in honor of his efforts, he says the group grabbed any supplies lying around to try and wrangle the gator.
That dude pulls up with some duct tape and a shoestring. He starts taunting the gator. Me and her brother Ty, we was like, it's our time now for real, we finna get this thing. I started yanking him back, walking him.
He's walking
like a pit bull.
Like a dog.
It was something wholesome. Like, the community really did come together to do something that our authorities would not do. Basically, not in good enough time.
Captain Linda Howard with the Bibb Sheriff's Office says law enforcement was aware of the gator sightings. She says animal control responded to the scene on Saturday.
And by the time they arrived, it had gone back into the water. We had a trapper that we were trying to get in contact with because our animal control cannot handle this one gator by herself. You know, we just have one person that usually do the wildlife.
By 8:30 Sunday night, a licensed trapper removed the gator, which has now been relocated to Lawrence County. As for the group, they're calling for faster response times from law enforcement in wildlife emergencies.
We showed that the city can come together for something positive. They waited till it could have been a potential hazard. Like, it was a lot of people here, yeah, but they didn't come until after they seen us actually wrangling it.
My goodness, how crazy is that? That was a pretty big gator, but they came together to wrangle it up, and hopefully, they'll find peace after that and won't have to run into any more gators. But again, just want to turn your attention to our website, KCTV5.com, for all the latest updates for your news headlines. It has been a very busy morning here in the KCTV5 newsroom, from just following up with the Frank White results of the recall election yesterday. Again, he has been voted out of his position as county executive of Jackson County, but in turn has filed a writ with the Missouri Supreme Court to vacate the recall election. He believes that it should have been held on an actual election date rather than yesterday, which was September 30th. And also, we are following closely the impacts of the government shutdown. But not just that, we have some exciting things to anticipate for this week. We have later this week this Chapel Roan concert, which will be happening on Friday and Saturday, as well as the release of Taylor Swift's new album, Life of a Showgirl, which will be later on this week as well. There's going to be a midnight release at Target, which I know a lot of folks are going to be so excited about. So once again, we do have another newscast that's coming up in a few minutes. Our Bill Hurlbrink and Carolina Cruz will be on KCTV5 News at noon, so be sure to tune in with them to get the latest report on the Frank White recall, the government shutdown, and other important news headlines that we have today. Also, another that has started today is the Missouri National Guard troops that will be assisting federal immigration officers as a result of an order from Governor Mike Kehoe. This is going to be in place for the next year. These troops are going to be working with ICE with data entry, case management, and logistical support. And these are troops who were assigned the mission on a volunteer basis. So once again, thank you so much for joining us here on KCTV5 Plus at the live desk. We will be right back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And we hope that you have a great Wednesday, a great hump day. Enjoy the weather because it is going to be nice for the rest of the week.